Every week I tell you how excited I am to talk to people who are doing things, making a difference, and spreading stories that I'm sure you're interested in. And today is no different. It is my pleasure to talk to somebody who I've kind of watched from afar because she's done so many things, making history and trailblazing. It is my pleasure to talk to Star Jones today on The Pulse. How are you today?
Hi, Bill. I'm great. Absolutely. Been having a lot of fun down here in Atlanta over the course of the last few months, and sort of jumping right back into the frying pan and the fray.
First, congratulations. We'll start there. You've been in TV for a minute, but you got a new show.
You know, when the new show comes around, there's just a little bit of organization and planning that one must do. And so, of course, you know me, the lawyer, I'm going to always make sure that the stuff is right. So I started to look over my SAG-AFTRA information, and, you know, it hit me like a ton of bricks. I've literally been working in television consistently every single year since 1992. Wow. I have 30 years in the business. And I realize that as an African-American woman, that's not something that folk get to say all the time.
No.
Now, to have this opportunity to take over a very storied franchise, you know, Divorce Court is the longest running court show on television. And yes, indeed. And it has had multiple iterations. And the ones that, you know, probably these generations are most familiar with are the amazing African-American women who have come before me, Judge Maybelline and Judge Lynn Toller and Judge Faith. And so to be able to build upon that legal legacy that those women have already laid is the opportunity of a lifetime.
I like to start by, especially people as accomplished as yourself, I'm always curious as to how you define yourself. So if you're telling your story, you got a whole SAG-AFTRA and all of those pages you just had to look through. But when you define Star Jones, how do you do that?
I had the opportunity to speak to some young people in Alabama. I was speaking at the University of Alabama, and they asked that same question, or a question very similar to it. And what I said to them is what I'll say to you. It's really important that you be the author of the only dictionary that defines you.
Okay.
You must write your own narrative at all times. Otherwise, you will allow someone else to write that narrative, and you may not agree with it. So as that author of the dictionary that defines me, I would tell you that I am a woman who is unapologetically Black and beautiful and brainy, and I'm okay about that.
Okay.
I care about people and places and things that make life better for us all. That's just who I am. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that I still feel like I can walk into any room with confidence and knowing that I am prepared for whatever God has for me next.
Yeah.
So that's how I would define myself.
Iyanla Vanzant was our first guest on The Pulse.
Impressive.
No, and yeah, Iyanla's great. But what she pointed out was very similar to what you were saying, is that she doesn't allow people to put her on a pedestal or define her, because if you allow people to do that, they're also the same people who can knock you off of that pedestal and redefine you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's interesting that two successful Black women with this type of career longevity live by that same lifestyle. You don't get to define me.
Yeah, but you know, Bill, here's the thing. If you can get this next generation to understand that, especially in the social media world that we live in, because a lot of young people are really getting their identity from other people, and it's a false identity. Social media in some ways makes you think that you are not as accomplished as those that you are following, when in reality, a lot of that is very fake. And that's really what I try to impart to young people as they define themselves, because this is a very weird time in our society. And I want young people to feel as special as I know this generation can be.
Up next, you may know Star Jones from TV, but be clear, she really put in the work and the grind to get to where she is today.
I started off as a public prosecutor and I quickly moved to become a senior assistant district attorney. I was the youngest homicide prosecutor in New York State. It really did prepare me when that opportunity came for television.
Welcome back to The Pulse. Today we're spending some time with television commentator, journalist, and now the new host of Divorce Court, Star Jones. Let's keep the conversation going. 30 years in TV consecutively in some capacity. And people see that, and some may know you from that. But your time in TV has not just been, in quotes, entertainer. You legitimately are a litigator and were a district attorney and all of those things. Is that part of your story to these young women that you're hopeful to inspire?
I've been in the game so long, I sometimes forget the opportunities that I've had to shine, on a public stage in a variety of capacities. And yes, you're right. I started off my career as a young prosecutor in Brooklyn, New York. And one of the things that I'm still the most proud of is passing that bar exam on the first try. But I say that to tell you that no matter what I've accomplished, I know that my education was the foundation of every single thing I was able to accomplish. I started off as a public prosecutor and I quickly moved to become a senior assistant district attorney. I was the youngest homicide prosecutor in New York State. And in my 20s, being in charge of some of the most serious cases in New York, some of the most high profile cases, it really did prepare me when that opportunity came for television. And then I became legal correspondent for NBC News, as you're aware. Mm-hmm. And then from there, I got to cover some of the most significant high profile cases in our country throughout the 90s and the 2000s. Everything from the Mike Tyson rape trial to the Menendez brothers murder cases to the beating of Rodney King and the civil and the federal case. And I got to really put the law on the front burner for a lot of people. So now you see a whole lot of legal correspondents that are on television. But I think in some ways I sort of created that genre because I was one of the few young people who was actually in the trenches talking about the law and making it user friendly.
You were ready. You were ready. Do you ever have to remind people? Because and maybe this is personal. I feel like sometimes people are like, you're just on TV. You're the talking head, not you personally, but people on TV in general. Have you ever had to go, wait, don't get it twisted. Like there is preparation along this journey to get here.
Sometimes you do have to say, I am an actual lawyer. I'm somebody that actually has picked juries. I'm actually someone who, at the end of a verdict, hears guilty or not guilty. I actually am someone who had to argue to put a man or a woman in prison for the rest of their life. I mean, and those kinds of considerations are actually very important. But then to take that law degree and use it in television is one thing. But I use that law degree to also advance in business. So, after I did The View, which was the most wonderful experience that sort of launched a lot of the work that I was able to do, I got to work in a public company as the president of a publicly traded company on the NASDAQ. Yeah. As we watched, Bill, the wonderful, talented, amazing Judge Ketanji Brown become the next Supreme Court justice, we were struck by the fact that she walked up in there so doggone prepared. Nobody could question. I mean, tried. And they tried, but it didn't work. At the end of the day, even they had to say, well, you know what? She is qualified.
With all of that background and all the things that you've done, legally, professionally, personally, Why divorce court? Why did you want to do that? Why did you jump at that opportunity?
Oh my gosh, Bill. Well, first of all, to be able to join that legacy of other Black women, and I don't take that lightly. I don't say that because it probably looks good on paper. Um, I say it because, with all humility, there's some bad sisters who work in the legal field, and I don't think that we give our sisters the credit for paving ways for us in so many ways. I love listening to Judge KBJ talk about the people who came before her and who allowed her to get to that space.
Yeah.
That's that acknowledgement that you didn't do it on your own. And so the fact that I get to continue a legacy of African American women legal excellence is a great opportunity. I think what I got to bring to the table, and that's what the people at divorce court really wanted from me, is I bring empathy, because no judgment whatsoever, none. You don't get to tell people that all of the choices that they've made are wrong. You get to point out, if you make better choices, you'll have better results.
So this is still a mission. It's not just entertainment. It sounds like your career has largely been based on mission-based challenges. Does this
Yes,
still
sir.
fall into that category?
100%. I mean, I find myself, as I am being the judge on divorce court, taking off my judge hat and putting on my Auntie Star hat. And often you actually hear it because I introduced the whole concept of the sister code. And in case you're not aware of that, Bill, the sister code is you don't mess with other people men.
Okay.
Okay?
I think
You
that's a
just
good
don't
life
mess
code,
with
but
other
okay.
people men. Okay?
Mhm.
That's in the sister code. You don't do that because one day you're going to want your own man and you don't want anybody messing with them. And how you get them is how you lose them. That's just in the sister code. And I think people have forgotten that. So bringing a level of integrity, responsibility, and accountability in an age where people don't have a lot of that, that's what we're doing on divorce court this season. And it is going to be rocking and rolling.
Coming up next on The Pulse, Star Jones clearly faced many challenges on her journey to her success. And next, she'll share with us how she overcame them in a very public way.
My big eye-opening moment became a very public one. I'm sure people are very well aware of, is when I had to confront my weight.
Welcome back. Excited to be hearing so much from Star Jones. Information I really wasn't even aware of. So let's get right back to that discussion. We were chatting before we actually started, the discussion for everybody else. It's a lot of work. Before I got into TV, I fully admit this because I used to work in talk radio. And I would sit back and watch TV and go, wish I had that job. All you gotta do is show up. They turn the cameras on. You talk for half an hour or an hour. And I don't think people realize all that goes into it. You're working to film this show.
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, these are real cases. These are real people. I'm not sure that I even fully appreciated that.
Okay.
I was remarking to my producing partners just this week, I don't think that people fully understand. These are real people's lives. There's no actors whatsoever. These are people who are dealing with real trauma in their relationships. Okay. And I actually prepared 9 shows a day.
Whoa.
Okay. So those are 9 different sets of lives who are bringing whatever drama and trauma that they've been going through to my bench. And each and every one of them is entitled to my full attention. And that means I research each and every one of them. I read each and every case. I know who their witnesses are. I read their evidence. I treat this very seriously because if the litigants trust me enough to come in and ask for my advice, I have to treat them with the dignity that their story actually deserves.
Was there that eye-opening moment, a challenge, a success, a moment where you feel like, okay, now I'm on my path? Like, what inspired you to do what you're doing now?
My big eye-opening moment became a very public one. I'm sure people are very well aware of, is when I had to confront my weight.
Mm.
I was probably in my most successful year ever on The View, but I weighed 300 pounds.
Mm.
Um, and saying that now out of my mouth is still pretty difficult. I weighed 300 pounds and I was 5'5".
Wow.
Um, that's just unhealthy. You're killing yourself. You're dying. And I had a friend who came to me. She had attended my 40th birthday. I had a big 40th birthday celebration. And over the course from my 40th birthday to my 41st birthday, I had gained 75 pounds.
Wow.
So
Okay.
clearly, I was in a depression. I was in a depressive state, but I wasn't dealing with it.
Mm-hmm.
And my friend came to me, and this was after a mutual friend, the late, great Luther Vandross, had passed
Yeah.
away. And she said to me, I'm so afraid that I won't hear from you for a couple of days. And I'll come into this apartment and you'll be on the floor dead from a stroke or a heart attack.
That's some real friend stuff to be able
It is.
to
And
have
you
that
know what? And
conversation.
she took our friendship in her hand and basically trusted that I would trust that she was coming to me out of friendship.
Yeah.
And I don't know why what she said hit me. It may have been that Luther had passed away, and I had known him so well. But I immediately got on the phone to my godmother, and I said, I need help.
Mm-hmm.
And she connected me with the doctor that could help me get a handle on what I would need to do.
Obviously, to a lot lesser extent, but I shared with people that I started in radio at a very young age because my father was in radio. So I started doing things. And what's tough in that capacity is all of your life challenges you're doing publicly. Yeah.
I didn't want to. I mean, if you'll recall, that was very, very traumatic for me. It didn't, and I didn't share everything because I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't explain it to myself. How could I explain it to you? I couldn't explain how somebody who's so smart, supposed to be the smart one in the room, the one that everybody comes to for advice, the legal eagle.
Yeah.
I couldn't explain to her why she couldn't get a handle on her own health. Next year will be 20 years. Do you know I lost 160 pounds over the course of 2 years?
Okay.
And nearly 20 years later, I've kept 140 pounds off.
All right. See,
Okay.
so that aha moment we can now celebrate because it may have saved your life, but certainly changed your life. Yeah.
It saved my life because who knew? But literally 7 years later, in 2010, I got diagnosed with heart disease.
Wow.
And I had to have open heart surgery. And I'm talking the kind where they crack your chest and they disconnect your heart. My heart was disconnected on the operating table for 22 minutes. 22 minutes. Then the heart lung machine had to keep me alive. And there's no way a 300-pound person would have been able to live through that kind of surgery.
Up next, now clearly Star Jones has been through a lot, and she'll share with us how she's used her platform to help others.
Heart disease kills more Black people than all forms of cancer combined. All of it. Yeah. We don't hear that. We don't hear that we're killing ourselves.
Welcome back to The Pulse. Star Jones with us today, sharing so many of her stories. So let's get right back to it. We like to ask people how to use their voice for good. It sounds like that's kind of been your mission, but we ask everybody, what is your use your voice for good message?
After open heart surgery, I became national volunteer for the American Heart Association. Okay. And I've been national volunteer now for a dozen years. And I learned through my own ordeal that heart disease is the number one killer of all women, the number one killer of all Black women, and the number one killer of all Black people. So that makes me 3 for 3. And literally a full 80% of heart disease can be avoided with simple lifestyle changes. So heart disease kills more Black people than all forms of cancer combined, all of it.
Yeah.
We don't hear that. We don't hear that we're killing ourselves. And so when you want to know, my message, if you will, I try not to be too simplistic, but it really does come down to, as a people, we need to eat less and move more.
Ms. Jones, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to do this, sharing the information. We, of course, will all be watching. I don't want to be in your courtroom, but if you're ever in Philadelphia, come on through.
Oh, I definitely will, because let me tell you something. Even though I have learned to watch my calories and eat correctly, there is nothing better than a Philly cheesesteak, and I have to have one at least once a year, okay?
When you're here, I got you, all right?
Excellent. Thank you so very much for having me. And actually, thank you for giving me the platform to talk about something that really and truly matters to me. She who has health has hope, and she who has hope has everything she needs. So let's get us healthy as a people.
I often say the thing that I enjoy the most about this show is hearing people's challenges and how they overcome them, hearing their inspiration. And Star Jones certainly shared all of that. Remember, if you want more, the podcast is always available every week, every place that you get your podcasts. Follow us on social media at BillAFox29, and make sure you're watching again this time next week. Have a good one.